Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here, and I had to make this video about what is going on in Gaza. I felt really compelled to make it. Again, this is not going to be articulate, I have not planned this out, I just felt that I needed to put this out there because I am absolutely horrified by what I am seeing. And the worst thing is, I will get into this, but the worst thing is that the Palestinian people are under oppression, they're under a colonial power. They're being bombed to bits. You know, the children are being bombed there, like there is nowhere safe. And the international community stands there and does absolutely nothing. So Israel is breaking international law. Their settlements, their occupation is illegal, but there's no sanctions, so nobody's doing anything. And I just can't stand the thought that, I mean, I know it's not going to do much good, but I can't stand the thought that the Palestinian people think that everyone's all right with it, that, you know, they can just get away with it, that the Israeli government can just get away with doing that, and that people don't care. People really do care. People do care, and I am absolutely horrified and disgusted, not only by our government, not only by Boris Johnson, Sajid Javid, who are trying to basically, not even both sides the argument, but basically presenting Israel as the place that's under attack. And apparently the Palestinians are the instigators because he decided to cut out all the context and jump in at the point when the resistance started happening. It's very convenient, they often do that. But also I say I'm no longer a part of the Labour Party. I've spoken about this before. I cannot be a part of that party any longer. I left the party and I joined Amnesty International instead because I did not want my money going to that corrupt, supposedly left-wing party, but they won't even stand up for the oppressed and the people who need them. You know, what's the point? So we've got like a leader, we've got Keir Starmer, who for ages and ages, Palestinians have been trying to talk to him, people of Palestinian heritage. They want to have a conversation with him about his stance on Israel and the conflict, and he won't hear them. You know, there's the anti-Semitism crisis, which, do you know what, I don't actually care how this sounds, and I feel like I'm not an optics person, you probably know that. I don't actually care how something looks, I care how something is, so I don't really care about optics. And there are issues I have with the framing of anti-Semitism, not to deny that anti-Semitism is a huge evil in the world and should be stopped, and not to deny that it exists all over the place, and for sure there is anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. But what I'm saying is that the Labour Party was not a hotbed of anti-Semitism unlike anything else. But what I do think is really, really evil and almost anti-Semitic in itself, I find, is the conflation of Jewish people and Zionism, because they are two completely different things. So if you're going to criticise Israel, the Israeli state's actions in the name of their faith, the way they use their faith, that I don't think makes you anti-Semitic, and it shouldn't. If that makes you anti-Semitic, then I guess I'm anti-Semitic. I just don't agree with that. I think they're two totally different things, and I think the idea that this Zionism and this occupation and this treatment of the Palestinian people is in any way Jewish is actually offensive in itself, because I don't believe that. I know a lot of Jewish people. I have Jewish family. A lot of our family were involved in like the Holocaust, and they came from, I believe they are Polish Jews and some Russian Jews. This is all through my grandfather, and we have a lot of extended Jewish family. And I follow a lot of Jewish people online, left-wing Jewish people, who fight courageously against the occupation of Palestine. So I'm sorry, you cannot tell me that Zionism and being Jewish are the same thing. Like, they are not in any sense the same thing. What we have going on in Israel is we have a far-right set of extremists who have taken control and who are doing this. They're not Jewish. They will call themselves Jewish, just like any other religious extremist. They don't represent Jewish people. And it's being used as a shield, because anyone who then stands up and says what's happening to Palestine is wrong, nobody wants to be called anti-Semitic, because obviously, if you're a good person, I mean, hopefully nobody wants to be, you know, awful to someone because of their religion. But this is exactly what the Israeli government is currently doing to the Palestinians. I'm sorry, but the behaviour that I have seen, and I've seen this because of social media, and I feel like this is where the narrative is starting to crumble, because all my life, when I've been brought up hearing about this, I've heard about Israel and Palestine as a conflict, as a war. So I would be under the impression, if I didn't do the extra research and hear these different voices, and if social media wasn't a thing, I would be under the impression this was a war. This is not a war. That narrative can no longer exist with social media because people are seeing. It's all very well for the Israeli government and for these Zionists to try and say, oh, it's complicated, and to try and spin it. But we can see it with our own eyes. Like, there are children dying there, and apartment blocks, residential apartment blocks, flattened. They're under constant siege. They're being bombed. There's nowhere to go, and it's presented as a mercy that that they're getting called, the Palestinian people, to be told in advance, oh, we're about to bomb your house, you might want to get out, and that's now being viewed as a mercy. I've seen the attempted lynching of a man by crowds of these far-right extremists. They are breaking the windows of Palestinian businesses, going through the streets and throwing things through the windows. And that's another thing that I'm sorry, I don't agree with. You know, this might be controversial, but to be honest, again, I don't care. I really don't care. If you can't call that what it is, if you can't call that Nazism, then I'm sorry, but what else can you say? That is the behaviour of Nazis. That is the behaviour of evil. And it has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with religion. I think any person in any group, there are people that have the capacity to do these terrible things. And apparently you're not supposed to say that it's like Nazism because of what happened to the Jewish people historically. And to that I just say that's absolute bullshit. I'm sorry, but that is absolute bullshit. To be anti the Israeli occupation is not to be anti-Jewish. It's just not the same thing. It's mad. The concept itself is mad, and it's how these extremists, how people like Benjamin Netanyahu are able to just keep doing this. Because then you've got people who are in the centre who are too afraid to say anything because they think it's, first of all, centrism is an absolute curse and it's rotted everyone's brains. Because we're at a point where people are convinced that it's more grown up to take the central stance on anything. You know, it's grown up and mature, and that's how we deal with conflicts. But it's got to a point where we are literally seeing settler colonialism. We are seeing children bombed and dying. We are seeing Palestine, who has no army, who has no military, who has no weapons apart from what they've made themselves. With Israel, who is nuclear armed and is sending in these highly advanced weapons that are being supplied by the US and by us in the UK. And they are, these grown-up politicians, they are both siding the issue. And nothing makes me more mad than these centrists who allow this violence and this evil to happen. These are the people that let these things happen in life. And I hate it, and they think they're good, nice people, and they are enabling murder and genocide and ethnic cleansing. How can this be a both sides issue when the Palestinians are reacting to colonialism, to ethnic cleansing, to genocide, to murder? Yes, they're firing rockets. Does that make it okay what Israel is doing? They're firing rockets, but do you know what? I think they have a right. I think they do have a right. I think that if we're speaking honestly here, and this is a humanity that we don't afford to people in the Middle East, if we were in their shoes and we were being treated the way Palestinians are being treated by Israel, if we were being occupied, if the Israeli Defence Force were going around and arresting children for throwing stones and manhandling people, women in the street, elderly people, if we were being bombed and we were denied the right to vote and we were being made smaller and smaller, we're basically living in an open-air prison, if we're enduring all this, are you telling me that we in Britain wouldn't fight back? Us, the people who very recently, conveniently actually, when it was coming up to the elections, we sent them in boats out to a dispute in France over fishing. Like, over fishing boundaries, and we went out there, like, with our big guns, bully boys, like, yeah, we're going to stand up for ourselves. Are you telling me that we, the current Britain that we are now, would not fight back? How can you expect people not to fight back? This is what's so awful, and it's like, every single social issue, like, comes down to this for me. It's that tone policing, it's that we agree with your ideals but not your methods thing. What can the Palestinians do? Because when they wanted to boycott and sanction Israel for these war crimes, they were called anti-Semitic, and we didn't do anything. Like, the international community was silent. Nothing has happened. What are ordinary Palestinians supposed to do now? Are they just supposed to sit there and die? Like, because it's a complex situation, they're just supposed to sit there and die. They've got nowhere to go. Like, children are dying. Like, I am seeing constantly, because of social media, I follow a lot of people who are in Gaza, and they're tweeting about how their apartments are shaking, They are hearing the bombs. There are people screaming. There's footage of children crying in terror because it's like the bloody blitz there. You know, it's there's bombs raining. People are dying every day. Children screaming for their dead parents. And yet we make out that, oh, it's an equal situation because Hamas are firing rockets. They're firing rockets. You know what? Does Palestine not have the right to defend itself? And I don't know. I don't know the internal politics of Hamas or anything like that. I'm not supporting them as a group. I just don't know. But what I do know from what I'm seeing is I would say they have every right in Palestine to be firing back, to be fighting back. We would fight back. Like, how can we tell them that it's wrong to do that when we would fight back? They're fighting for their lives. The Israeli leaders have said that they're not, more buildings will crumble. They've said that their aim is to create terror. Like, they've said this isn't going to stop. They won't stop until it's quiet. Like, they are openly telling the world they are going to absolutely demolish Palestine and the Palestinians. And nobody's doing anything. They always make it a both sides issue. They always start from the reaction. Like, they always position the story and they make someone who is reacting to a long instance of oppression, they make them the aggressor because they act like the story started there. They don't mention the context of the settler colonialism that's been going on for years and years and these breaches of international law because that doesn't suit their narrative. So they have to start with, well, Hamas fired the rockets, so Israel's just defending itself. Defending itself against what? If the Israeli government left the Palestinian people alone, it didn't commit human rights abuses, it didn't break international law, then there would be no rockets. They have the power to stop this. They have the power to stop this happening. But of course, that's not what they want. Like, they want to demolish Palestine. That's the idea. And I think some of it is so rooted in Islamophobia. Like, for us, certainly in Britain, like, the reason why we don't act is because I do believe it's because the majority of the Palestinian people are Muslim. Like, and we are so Islamophobic. It's like we don't see Muslim people here, like in other countries, especially in the Middle East, we don't see them as people. You know, like they're not equal to us. They don't have the same feelings. You know, they're just collateral. We just see them on the news suffering. President Biden. I mean, I don't like President Biden. You know, I thought, you know, at least he's better than Trump, but I think he is complicit. I think he is cowardly. He said he spoke to Netanyahu, and basically he was like, "Oh yeah, I hope it will end soon." What do you mean you hope it will end soon? What the hell did you say? Did you say to him, "You need to stop killing children for the love of God? Please stop bombing these civilians"? And then what did you say? Did you say there were going to be sanctions? You've done nothing. This is a modern day genocide happening right in front of us, and we're supposedly so enlightened here in the Western world, and yet we just let it happen because we're so sensible. And I don't think people understand, like, all these be kind bloggers and people online who consider themselves like, oh yeah, be nice, be kind. They don't care about justice. I'm not seeing a thing from them. Like, I'm not seeing a thing. It's like people are so much more concerned. This is what's wrong with society. Like, people are so much more concerned with the optics and being everyone's friend and being nice and not taking a point of view. And so these terrible atrocities happen, and that's how historically they just keep happening. I've been really upset, like, about it, and I feel like I can't detach from it. Which is, you know, it might be because of my condition. I do have borderline personality disorder, so I do feel stuff really, really strongly. But I really feel helpless, and it breaks my heart. And sorry to make this about me and like how I feel as someone who's safe here, but like the fact that our leaders will do nothing. Like, they will do nothing. I mean, I've written to my MP, but what can we do? In terms of what we can do, actually, I'll put a link in the description box. For medical aid for the Palestinians, which I've donated to. Also on my Instagram, if you follow I've changed my link in my profile to medical aid for Palestinians. So anything you can donate there, you know, please do if you can. Like, those are the things we can do. We can do things in terms of aid, but in terms of actually solving this situation, we have cowardly governments. Like, we sell arms to Israel. Like, we're doing that. You know, like, so EBIT, BAE Systems, we are to blame. Like, we are part of this. It just truly upsets and enrages me. And, like, obviously I know how privileged I am, you know, being able to sit here and make this. And I've been thinking about it and thinking about the fact that, like, the people in Gaza, I think, again, because of social media, it's so much easier to realise, you know, just these people, just like us, are living in that environment right now, while Israel, who is armed to the teeth, is basically threatening to destroy them. And every time they take out a civilian target, they say, oh, it's because Hamas was hiding there. Absolute bullshit. absolute bullshit. Like, children are dying, and there's no remorse. Like, they've got to a point where they don't even see the Palestinians as human. And where have we seen that before in history? You're not supposed to say it, but it's true. You see it in Nazism. Like, you see it in these sorts of movements across history. The dehumanization of the other to the point that you can commit these atrocities. Like, look at the IDF. So it's young people in Israel are expected to do military service. And you see these young IDF soldiers, and you see the way they treat the Palestinians, and it's so normalised to them. Like, it's toxic. And we feed into this because they believe they're doing right by their country and they are at war. That's what they're being told. Like, that's how they're conditioning them to think that they are at war. So the humanity's just gone. And we, in both sides in this, in going along with the idea that this is a war, an equal war, we are enabling that. Surely human life means something. Surely the lives of children mean something. And how on earth can Israel do this? How can the leaders, like, sleep at night? I probably sound so incredibly naive, and I know that I am. I know that, you know, I'm not a politics student. I'm not hugely educated. I try to educate myself, but, you know, I'm not an expert on anything like this. But it is just absolutely breaking my heart, and I had to make this to say that I support Palestine 100% and that Palestine should be free. And I'm just so distressed by what I'm seeing, and it's just absolutely horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying, and I don't know, it's shocking. And more, every time you go on Twitter, there's more pictures of dead children, you know, children smiling in happier times, you know, just normal little kids that people have been conditioned to see as the other, or that they don't matter, you know, just little children who've had their lives taken from them, and for what? You know? I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna go now. Thanks for watching this. Please do follow the link if you can, and donate. Like, you can donate a really small amount. It would really, really help, because I'm sure that the Palestinian people are gonna need it. Okay, I love you loads, and I'll see you really soon. Okay, bye.